welcome to this podcast. In this episode, we're going to look at calculating GPA, and the reason I want to look at this with you, besides the practical reason that all of you should be able to calculate your own GPAs, is it's a wonderful example of what's called a weighted average. So let's go ahead and look at this, and I want to do this starting off as sort of a table format, and then as we get into it a little bit more, I'll show you a little bit of the nuts and bolts of the math that goes into this. So let's list first all of our courses that we're taking. Then I want to list the letter grade, if we will, and out to the side of the letter grade I'll write the points that they're worth, in case you guys didn't know that. And then the number of course hours. That's a big consideration when calculating GPA. And then finally, we'll calculate this thing that most universities call quality points or graduation points or point hours or something like that. And so this is the table that we want to create. And so I've got a list of courses here, typical courses most freshmen are in. And so we'll start with English. Now let's suppose that your letter grade for English was a B. A B, by the way, is worth 3 total points. And most English classes are 3-hour courses, and the quality points then are defined to be the total of the letter grade points times the course hours, which would be, in this case, 9. So that B in English is worth 9 quality points. Alright, let's look at math. Suppose in math you made a C. A C would be worth 2 quality point, or 2 letter grade points. And let's suppose that's also a 3-hour course, so it's a total of 6 quality points. Let's suppose that you took a physics course that had a lab associated with it. And so the physics course, you wound up with a D. D is worth 1 quality point. And the course hours for that, since it involved a lab, would be 4 for a total of 4 quality points. Next up, let's look at Spanish. So let's say you took a Spanish course and you wound up with a B in it. Once again, that's 3 points. For a 3-hour course, is a total of 9 quality points. And then finally, one more course here, let's look at Bible. So let's say you're taking Bible and you have an A in Bible. That's worth 4 points towards your letter grade. And let's say it's a 3-hour course as well for a total of 12 quality points. So there's a couple of things that you would want to do right away. And the first is figure out how many credit hours you're taking, and that's a total of 16 in this example. And then next up would be to sum up the quality points, which is a total of 40 in this example. And so what you should know is that the GPA is equal to the number of quality points divided by the number of course hours. Which in this case is really easy to calculate, 40 divided by 16. And if we use our calculator right quick on that, we're going to get 2.5. So we have a total of a 2.5 GPA for that semester. We'd have to include this with our other semesters if we wanted an overall GPA. So a couple of things that I want to mention about what we're seeing here. The course hours themselves are acting like weights. So these are the weights of the weighted average. And the reason that they're weights is getting a D in physics, which is 4 course hours, means more than if you were getting a D in some other course. And that's because the 4 hours weights it more heavily than, say, a 3-hour course. So if I was calculating GPA the way we calculate averages, the idea is to sum them all up and then divide by the total number. Well, the total number of course hours is 16, so I need a weighted version of those hours, and the best way to write it's like this. Take however many A's you have and multiply that by the number of course hours in which you made A's. For example, I have an A and the course hours is a total of 3 in which I made A's. Remember that the A represents a 4.0, so I'm multiplying 4 times 3. Next up is B's. How many course hours involved a B? Well, I've got 3 here and 3 here for a total of 6. How many involve C's? Well, if you look, I've got 3 course hours involving C's. And then D, I have 4. And then finally for F, thankfully, there are none. And so looking at each of these, the B is 3.0, C is 2.0, D is 1.0, and F is 0. You get no credit for an F. The weights are what I have in the parentheses here, 3, 6, 3, 4, and 0. That's the total number of credit hours, and that's what I would need to divide by. If you calculate this, you will also get 2.5. Now I just want to make it clear that the sum of the weights, in other words, the sum of the things in the parentheses, actually add up to the denominator. So that's sort of an important feature of any weighted average, is that the sum of the weights equals the denominator. So a lot of times when we work on, say, your grades as we calculate them, weights are oftentimes percentages. So we might do this exact same thing at the end of the year, where instead of adding up the course hours, what we're adding up is the percentage of your quiz grades. For example, if your quiz is counted as 20% of your total grade, then we would multiply your quiz average by 0.2. That would be the weight that we give it. And it works out almost exactly like what we've done here with calculating GPAs. I hope you've enjoyed this podcast. This was a look at how to calculate your GPA, but also maybe a little bit of the deeper look at the idea behind a weighted average and sort of how they're used and how they pop up when we consider a lot of the statistical data that we'll be looking at here over the next week or so. Thanks for watching.